Okay, they go back in and use their natural resources. Well, Jeanette and I got into a conversation. Well, the charter says the king owns it. That may be, but the bottom line boils down to, if the people in the state started their own bank, the king and the Vatican is not going to come over here and say, well, wait a minute, we own the land, we own all the resources. You want to put this in writing? Because we kicked your butt across the sea once before, and we'll send you back. Because the moment you put it in writing that you own everything, you just proved the fraud of our entire country.
And I'm here to tell you, if they think that for 1 minute they'll come over here to this country and try to take from us, and they come over on the East Coast, I'll be standing on the beach waiting.
These are people. This is like I said, a whole new avenue of way of looking at what we have been told throughout the years of the Patriot movement. These are new avenues, new documentation of putting it to a picture instead of just looking at a single piece. This is what we're trying to do. I said, this is just the beginning. I'm trying to get more documentation. As I get it, we will get deeper and deeper into this.
It's like the Illuminati and the Bilderbergers. The reason that they're so quiet and secretive, first of all, Prince Bernhard or whatever is out of the Netherlands, okay, and that's where they started. The Bilderbergers is not the name of a person; it's the name of the Hotel de Bilderberger in the Netherlands. But the reason they're so secretive is because they said if the Americans knew what we were really up to, they would discover that they are anything but free. Okay, so you guys need to know what they've done to your parents, to your grandparents. They came over here through Ellis Island, unless you're an indigenous people. They came over here through Ellis Island to get away from religious persecution, to get away from oppression, to come over here for a free start when the banks got a hold of them and strangled them anyway.
You know, and this is why with this internet, this land rights and farming, because this is being hit internationally by us being broadcasting this stuff, and we have a lot of international people on the line that is listening. By having them on the line, understanding what we're sitting here saying, they start going back in and start doing some of the research on the website and start looking what we're talking about here, and they start realizing that they were brought into the fraud by the Bilderbergs, by the Rothschilds, and these people are hiding in their country. They're not going to be in their country very long before they start coming up short and coming up missing. Right now, they're over there because they're not safe over here.
Well, Jacob Rothschild has been on our website repeatedly, and this is for you, Jacob Rothschild. When you see me knocking on your door, it's too late.
Because, like I said, people, we have come a long ways from 20 people to where we are now hitting over 200, plus we have other radios broadcast, like Ghost Fighters radios bringing in. We have ham operators coming in. We've got this website where we're now pulling international people in. We are exposing, and it's all because of how we are doing it by laying it out. We're not laying out partial information. We're laying out step for step. Now, as we get new information, we'll add to it. We'll sit here and expand it out.
Well, also, Rod, some of the people that are coming on have their own blog sites, and we have a lot of listeners and a lot of readers that are putting links up to our blog site. And I also, like I said earlier, I have put your AIB community radio invitation up there. So, and a lot of readers are coming in from your chat line off of AIB radio as well. So it's vice versa. The blog is advertising AIB radio, and AIB radio is advertising the blog, and a lot of people are putting this up on their blogs as well too. So this is huge. And the other thing is that since there are so many countries that are listening and reading the papers, it's because they want to learn what's wrong also. They want to know what is wrong. Why isn't this car running right? They're looking for the answers too, folks.
Oh, and isn't the fact that they come back in with stupid American people? this is the fact that the American people were stupid. It's the fact that this stuff was hidden so well, and we was not able to discover it because we didn't have interconnection. And a few of the people out here that is out here doing the paperwork, they are patriots for profit, and some of these people aren't much different than the people we are fighting because they're sitting on half information.
Well, I'm just retired. I moved here to retire, and I've done everything but retire. But we've got a lot of people that are learning and listening, and they want to know the truth.
So, like I said, we're giving it out to you for you all to sit back, weigh it, look at it, draw your own conclusions, look at it from a fresh perspective, a new perspective. Give you a new point of view that you can sit back and say, you know what? I didn't realize all this. We didn't know all this was together. We knew about one or two of these documents, but we never thought about putting all this stuff together.
One of the documents I just put out the other day, just looking up Enron, by the time I was through, that paper was 265 pages long, and it's just getting hammered. It's just hammered. It cites the laws that Enron has violated, so I went in and got the laws, and like Rod says, I don't just put in a little bit, and some people, they only read like one paragraph or one sentence of a law. I put in the whole damn chapter 29. The whole thing, and it's like 23 pages of law. Why? Because I'm not going to take the chance of them crashing that whole website, and I can't get it tomorrow. So I take it all today. When I get evidence, I don't leave an out clause. I don't leave a loophole. When I have evidence, if I'm on your heel, it's too late for you because I'm not going to get off. And that goes for you too, Jacob Rothschild.
Because, like I said, with what we pulled up on the bankruptcy, the moment you tie this into Title 12, 95A, 95B, you tie it into Title 12, 411, 412, 413, you go back in, tie this back into Volume 48, 1933, 1934, pages 1 through 112. Now you're sitting down looking at a bigger picture of how this bankruptcy was done, who are the receivers in this sucker, who is responsible for the debt, and see, this is something that nobody ever bothered explaining or getting into. But
if you're going into the bankruptcy of 1933, and then they didn't have the United Nations till 1945, which coincidentally was the International Organizations Immunities Act of 1945, December 9th, but they've got the bankruptcy of 33, then you've got the Federal Reserve in 1913, the sinking of the Titanic in 1912, the secret meetings on Jekyll Island in 1910, and then you've got all of these, the Banking Act of 1863. Folks, these are not just, pull something out of the hat. These are planned acts that they had to get A done in effect before they could do B. And these are done 25, 35, 50 years, 100 years in advance, because they knew damn well what they were going to do.
So, like I said, with what we're bringing in, with what we're looking at, we're giving you a lot bigger concept. And I realize we just dumped a whole bunch of information here tonight, and that's why this thing is recorded for you to go back in and listen to it and get your mind wrapped around it. Because, like I said, once I'm able to get some of this other information, well, we can start nailing this thing down. Like I said, that statement that's on the internet that supposedly Jim Traffic has said this whole big thing, not just one little paragraph. If we could go back in where that whole thing is what he actually put on the floor of Congress, and we could go back in and start validating what he was sitting here saying, ladies and gentlemen, we just unraveled the fraud, and we just unraveled that little black card that they now are accountable, and you're not a 14th Amendment citizen. They now come in and they have to owe us a total means of living. Of course, we still have to do our part of providing homes and cars, and we have to work because our labor is what is giving this to us. But now we found that way of going after it, and we don't have to go through all the rigmarole.
Well, also, Ron, excuse me, if Congress was suspended since the 1800s, why in the hell are we paying them to have their job if it's been suspended? And how come Congress is passing and enacting laws that they can't do it because they're invisible and they don't exist?
That's exactly right. And you put in that one report about the militia, and it is the people, what it boils down to, under the original Militia Act, it comes down into the people. We have to enforce this. And now that we have rulings from the Supreme Court saying it's not their job to sit down and provide services, then it's not your job to provide services, then it's not your job to drag us in. You can't sit here and drag us in if you're not providing us with services, but now you're coming back in under the Constitution, and if it's been suspended, you're taking this job based on fraud and deception and under taxpayers' fraud because you're being paid for a job that doesn't exist.
Well, the paper that I put out today that's on the blog, it's actually entitled 1933, the year most Western world nations were forced into bankruptcy. Now, that's that document that I read earlier, but this also has a lot more information on it. It's referencing the bankruptcy in 1933. The bankruptcy went through with and into international banks, and Congress are the trustees who have a vested interest therein. Then is it safe to presume, or it is safe to presume, that all countries had to be also in involuntary bankruptcy based on what Rod projected. So, yes. Now, what we're talking about today, a lot of it we just found today. The 1933, the year the most Western world nations were forced into bankruptcy, Proclamation 2040 bank holiday. So there's that. Then I've got this of what Rod found, October 29th, 1945. The receivers of the United States bankruptcy are the international bankers via the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. But the Emergency Banking Act was March 9th, 1933. There's an intentional fraud against the American people right there, which caused the damage to the rest of the world because they lied, cheated, and committed bank fraud and invested in it. That's 12 years difference. Then we've got these HJRs. We've got the Banking Act, of which I just received today from the Library of Congress. So there's a lot of documented evidence here. Plus, I think I even have the trafficking thing in here. And I put in the entire article. Excuse me. A Country Defeated in Victory, Part 2. Folks, this is a very profound document. And it's also referencing back to the Country Defeated in Victory. This letter from the Rothschilds in here goes back to the book Vindication, of which I also have a copy of that book in entirety. And I also referred you folks back into the Assassins of Abraham Lincoln, which goes back to the Queen, and it goes back to the Revolutionary War, which ended, what was that, April of 1865. But it also takes us back to the 1863 Rothschild letter, which also shows that in that assassination of Abraham Lincoln, the Queen's connection to the South in the war. So there's a lot of reading, and I hate to read, folks. And some of this stuff is 300-400 pages. I got to read so that I have my facts in order when I put out a paper.
Okay, let's take a break. Let me bring in Dave Busty because we're probably going to get into our case here a little bit, which is fine. Now, I'm sorry, Dave, I held you off, but I want to get into all this other stuff before you and I start getting into what we filed into our court case and what you've got. So let me bring you in, Dave, and we'll open up things and we'll get talking. But, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, there is so much here, so much of what we're doing. It's just that, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is just totally mind-boggling. And like I said, Jeanette and I just got into a lot of this stuff here today of unloading what we're just talking about here and to expose.
Well, here's something on that letter from the Rothschilds while we're waiting for Mr. Busey to come in. Here's from the Rothschilds to Mr. John Sherman. It says, Mr. John Sherman has written us from a town in Ohio, USA, as to the profits that may be made in the national banking business under a recent act of your Congress, a copy of which act accompanied his letter. Apparently, this act has been drawn upon the plans formulated here last summer by the British Bankers Association and by the association recommended to our American friends as one that, if enacted into law, would prove highly profitable to the banking fraternity throughout the world. Mr. Sherman declares that there has never been such an opportunity for capitalists to accumulate money as that presented by this act, to accumulate money as that presented by this act, and that the old plan of